Ho, 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 it's me, Ellen Claus. That was stupid. Here with a festive video to get you into the holiday spirit. So cuddle up by the LED fireplace, spike your hot cocoa, and get cozy, because we're going to talk about family. Specifically, Santa's family. In movies. You saw the thumbnail.
And all I've got to offer is sensitivity, intelligence, and charm.
When talking about movies that go into the lore of the Claus family, I found it easiest to split them up into categories and subcategories. To start things off, let's talk about movies that still feature the various members of Saint Nick's family, but primarily focus on the big guy himself. The family is present. Get it? Like present? Like Christmas present? This is stupid. But a family member is not the protagonist. Santa is. Now that we've established our first category, let's talk about it. Before we actually get started, I'm actually going to be rating these for fun and video flavor out of 10 candy canes, based on believability, the importance of the family element, and the warm, festive fuzzies the movie gives you. It's all very objective and scientific. Anywho. The first movie in this category is a classic. The 1970 Rankin Bass special, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. The family member that gets the most attention here is Jessica, or Mrs. Claus. But wait, there's more. Have you ever really thought about the Rankin Bass Christmas lore? Probably not, because you're not supposed to, and I'm a crazy person for doing that. Like, okay, for one, it's not coherent at all. Each special features a different Santa with a different history. But for two, the histories are always kind of bizarre if you really pay attention to them. Like this special, for example. Santa was raised by 5 elves and one seemingly normal human woman in the woods. Why is this woman living with 5 elves in the woods? Is it like a Snow White situation? Is it like a thing, you know? They're also toy makers, so maybe like the elves are like laborers and this woman is like the floorman. In which case, we really need to be unionizing these elves. As I said, our main focus in this special isn't really on this woman and her toy slaves, but on Jessica. There's not really much to her, which is to be expected in a 1970 Rankin Bass special. She's at first hesitant towards Chris, Santa, but quickly comes around after a brief musical number. She even gets her own musical number later on. Yay. However, what she did do was encourage me to look up when Mrs. Claus was first introduced to the Santa Claus lore, which was in 1849, which is a lot sooner than I thought it would have been. So that's cool. And like, listen, it's not like I hate Jessica. She did say ACAB, which is very badass of her. She's just kind of bland in terms of her character. 3 out of 10 candy canes. So, I was going to put the Santa Claus here, but after some thought and deliberation, I think I'm going to put it in its own special category later on. So, stay tuned to find out what that is. Ooh, compelling stuff. With that being said, let's move on to our first subcategory, which is movies where Santa is the main protagonist, but Mrs. Claus is heavily featured as a very strong secondary character. Maybe even the main protagonist in one of these that I'm about to talk about. When I asked people for movies that involve various Santa family members, so many people suggested the Christmas Chronicles, which was fun, but not really about the Santa family. Maybe the sequel that just came out has more to do with that. But anyways, I watched the first one, because that's what everyone told me to watch, and it only very briefly features Mrs. Claus at the end. But I'm putting it in this category because even though she's only in the movie for like a minute, this Mrs. Claus still has more of a personality than Jessica shows us in the whole hour-long runtime of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. 1 out of 10 candy canes because this isn't a Santa's family movie. The Santa Claus gets its own category, the Santa Claus 2 does not. The Santa Claus 2 revolves around Santa, Scott Calvin, Tim Allen, trying to find a Mrs. Claus for legal reasons. Yes, for legal reasons. He also has to grapple with his teenage son, growing up, coming of age, and becoming a naughty boy. Balancing family life and his career as Santa Claus. All of these movies are so much weirder than I remember. Family is really the focus of this movie. Santa is still the protagonist, but the core of the film is Santa's relationship with his family. Specifically, the future Mrs. Claus, a woman named Carol. Creative. A pretty big chunk of the movie is spent trying to woo Carol in less than a month so Scott can continue to be Santa Claus. He even goes so far as to use up all of his magic to accomplish this. Women. Am I right, fellas? This one has a lot of good family feels, and it really does have family at its core. 8 out of 10 candy canes. Docked a point because of Tim Allen's Twitter, docked another point because I'm embarrassed that I thought Bernard was hot when I was 9. Let's go back to Rankin Bass land, shall we? The Year Without a Santa Claus is easily one of my favorite Rankin Bass Christmas specials. Honestly, probably one of my favorite Christmas specials ever. It's so unique and, again, just weird. I love it. Mrs. Claus acts as our narrator and as the main driving force of the plot here, which is why I almost want to say that she's the actual protagonist of the special, but at the end of the day, the narrative still centers around Santa. Just to sidebar for a second, can we talk about how buck wild Rankin Bass lore is again? At the very beginning of this special, there's a song that mentions gnomes and elves. Since when does Santa have gnomes? In this special, Mrs. even bounces around the idea of filling in for Santa this year, but instead opts for more of a supportive role because, you know, women. She definitely has more of a personality than she did in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. If this is still meant to be Jessica, but later on in life, it looks like she finally grew her own identity. Good for her. I'm sorry, I know we just sidebarred, but can we sidebar again? Why are there so many movies, Christmas movies specifically, that feature disguising a reindeer as a dog and then calling it Rover? It happens in another movie on this list too, which might have been a callback to this movie. Also, is Snow Miser hot? 4 out of 10 candy canes. New category. Let's move away from movies where Santa himself is the main focus or protagonist, and instead move to movies where a member of Santa's family is the main focus or protagonist. Get ready for a lot of movies named after their main character. This category will be split into 2 different subcategories. Movies where the titular family member is happy with their relationship to Santa, and movies where the titular character is not happy with their relationship to Santa. Let's start with the happy ones. Noel is cute. It's about Santa's daughter and sister. Okay, that sounded wrong. Let's rewind. Let me explain. The lore of this movie treats Santa as a title that gets passed down through generations, like a kingship. At the beginning of the story, Noel's father, Santa, Chris, passes away, thus passing on the title to his eldest son, Noel's brother, Nick. Nick doesn't actually feel up to the task of becoming Santa and runs away, thus setting the plot in motion. Noel runs after him, brings him back, and he still doesn't want to be Santa. Everyone in the North Pole realizes that Noel has way more Christmas spirit than Nick and is much better suited for the title of Santa, and boom! Girl boss Santa movie. Like a lot of the movies in this category, it's basically about proving yourself to your family and accepting everybody as they are, etc., etc. That stuff. I like the twist where it's not the family member who's super not into Christmas, but actually Santa Jr. himself, whereas the title character is actually almost overly into it. This movie features a lot of questionable special effects, but that's pretty par the course for Christmas movies like this. But also, considering it did come out in 2019, it probably could have been better. It was cheesy, but it was fun. I liked it. It had a lot of heart. Also, the sibling relationship between Noel and Nick was super cute. 9 out of 10 candy canes. I liked it. Good family elements. Warm fuzzies. Ticking all the boxes. Arthur Christmas is like Noel in that it treats Santa as a title that gets passed down through generations. The plot is basically about 3 generations of Santas fighting over who gets to claim the role. There's Grand Santa, Current Santa, and Santa's eldest son Steve, who's poised to take over the role after his father's retirement. The title character, Arthur, is the current Santa's youngest son, who, gosh darn it, just wants everyone to have some gosh dang Christmas spirit. On Christmas Eve, it's discovered that Santa forgot a present, and Arthur runs off with Grand Santa to try to deliver it. Full transparency, I don't know why, but this movie makes me cry like a baby. It's a comedy. I don't know why this movie makes me so emotional. It relies very heavily on the conflict between generations. Grand Santa is always reminiscing on the good old days. Steve is irritated with his father because he refuses to step down and let him take the reins. It also features a lot of really good humor about Mrs. Claus that it just genuinely cracks me up. She's always like off fighting polar bears and signing treaties with Greenland, and Santa will say something like, I don't know, she does whatever women do. Or like there's a part where Santa and Mrs. Claus are getting ready to go to bed, and she hands Santa a present with her name on it, and she says, this one's for me, just so he can hand it back to her and feel like he did something. Which like I feel like everyone's mom does that. I don't know, I just think all that stuff is really good. Like Noel, this movie ends with our main character becoming Santa because he has more spirit than everybody else, duh. The moral definitely comes back to the generational tensions, saying that you shouldn't forget the old way of doing things, but also don't cling on to it too tightly. Honestly, I could probably do a whole video just on this movie, so we're gonna stop it here. 10 out of 10 candy canes, I love this movie. Now for our not so happy family members. The obvious movie here is 2007's Fred Claus, about Santa's older, grumpy brother, Fred. There's some terminology that's often used when describing toxic family dynamics that I think is relevant to the discussion of this movie. About this movie, of this movie. The golden child is the best and most wonderful child in the eyes of the parents. In the context of the film, this would be Nicholas. Santa. The scapegoat is the person whom all the ills of the family are projected onto. In the context of the film, this would be Fred. Nicholas has always been the generous and talented, magical golden child who their parents always doted on and expressed pride in, leaving Fred basically forgotten unless something is being blamed on him. At the start of the story, our title character hasn't spoken to his family in years, but reaches out to his brother when he finds himself in some trouble. Nick says he'll only help out Fred if he agrees to come and spend some time in the North Pole, helping him prepare for Christmas. This obviously leaves Fred feeling pretty bitter and leads to shenanigans and drama when Fred is forced to confront the family he's been neglecting. The moral of the movie is said outright. There are no bad kids, just bad situations. And I think that's really sweet and sincere, especially for a Vince Vaughn comedy. The humor of the movie is kind of cringe, and it definitely suffers from mid-2000s movie style syndrome. Watch some movies from like 2004 through 2008, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I don't know, it's kind of cute. 7 out of 10 candy canes. I was going to talk about the 2006 ABC Family original movie, Santa Baby here, but I swear I cannot find a copy of it anywhere. Who knows, maybe they're just embarrassed to be associated with Jenny McCartney and her anti-vax sentiments. The sequel is everywhere, but not the original I really wanted. So, I just looked up a synopsis. This will be brief. Santa Baby is about Santa's baby. Santa Baby is about Santa's daughter, who is a fast-paced businesswoman. She gets called back up north to help prepare for Christmas because Santa is sick or something. But wouldn't you know it, she doesn't have very much Christmas spirit. Anyways, she spends some time at the North Pole, falls in love with the mailman, and gets her Christmas spirit back. The end. 3 out of 10 candy canes because I barely remember it and I can't find it anywhere, and that annoys me. Okay, let's get back to the Santa Claus. What's the surprise category gonna be? The suspense is absolutely killing me. Funny you should say surprise, because the category is surprise! You're Santa's family now. As in, Santa didn't know he was Santa until the start of the movie, so how could his family know they were Santa's family? I'm assuming most people know the plot of the Santa Claus, but in case you don't, basically this dude named Scott Calvin accidentally murders Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, and so he becomes Santa Claus. No, I'm not joking, that is the plot of the Santa Claus. Charlie's in this one too, but less as a shitty teen and more as a child of divorce, which, aside from becoming Santa, is basically the emotional crux of the whole thing. Scott trying to have a good relationship with his son after a messy breakup with his ex-wife, and also balancing this sudden career change with being a single father, etc. 6 out of 10 candy canes because it's not as much about family as the second one is, but it's a classic, so I'll allow it. So, what was the point of all this? What was my thesis statement? Not to get mushy on Maine or anything, but I think these movies offer us a glimpse into a world where tense family relations can truly be solved with some holiday cheer. Nobody has the perfect family. Some of us are children of divorce. Some of us grew up as the scapegoat. And some of us were raised by 5 elves and 1 whole human woman in the woods. I'm personally that last one. Unfortunately, reality doesn't always have the happy ending of a Christmas movie. In fact, it rarely does. Tensions cannot be eased that easily. But it's nice to escape to that world for a little while. Also, I forgot elf bowling, 11 out of 10. Okay, that was the video about various versions of the Claus family. It might be the last video of the year because the Friday after next is Christmas Day, but it depends if I end up having the time and energy to have something scheduled to drop that Friday. We'll see. I will still be streaming next Friday, though. So, next Friday is a stream. Friday after that might be a video, might not be. As far as other announcements go, I've opened up a Patreon. If for some bizarre reason you feel so inclined to help me fund whatever this is, it's linked in the description. If you liked this video, you know the drill. Do the liking, the subscribing, sharing, etc., etc. If you didn't like this video, I'm afraid I'm going to have to report you to Burgermeister Meisterburger. These Arthur Quithmith